Dusty's dream. Dusty Rivers existed within the orbit of Johnny Cash. His cramped quarters, scarcely larger than a generous closet, resonated with the sonorous rumble of the man in black. Sunlight, splintered by a ballet of airborne particles, spotlighted album sleeves adorning the walls. At Folsom Prison, ride this train, American 4, the man comes around, each a shrine to his idol. Strapped into his wheelchair, a time-worn chariot bearing the marks of years gone by, he tapped a restless rhythm against the leather armrest with fingers hardened from countless revolutions of the wheels. As the initial chords of Ring of Fire exploded from the record player, Dusty's eyes drifted shut, and he began to sing. His voice, surprisingly robust and imbued with feeling, filled the confined space. It wasn't a carbon copy of Cash, but possessed a unique, unvarnished authenticity. He poured himself into the lyrics, color rising in his cheeks. "Love is a burning thing," he roared, his voice catching slightly with passion. The room underwent a transformation, morphing from mere walls and a ceiling into a hazy saloon, a roaring stadium, a campfire under a canopy of stars. Within his mind's eye, he wasn't a young man bound to a chair, but an artist, a bard, a vessel for the music that surged through him. The door eased open, and Martha, his mother, peered in. A tender smile played on her lips as she observed him, leaning against the frame, arms folded, allowing him to finish his performance. As the final note dissipated, she offered a gentle hand clap. "That was lovely, Dusty," she said, her voice warm and full of affection. He colored, suddenly aware of her presence. "Ma, I didn't hear you." She pushed away from the doorway and maneuvered his chair so they faced one another. "I wouldn't dream of interrupting when you're lost in the music. It nourishes your spirit." She reached out, tenderly sweeping a lock of hair from his forehead. "You have a remarkable gift, Dusty. Don't keep it hidden away." He averted his gaze, his fingers twisting nervously. "Easy for you to say. Who wants to listen to a singer in a wheelchair?" A fierce protectiveness flared in Martha's eyes. "Never speak like that again. Your talent transcends those wheels. It's in your voice, your fervor, the emotions you evoke. Remember that." She paused, softening her tone. "The county fair is next month. They're having a talent show." A spark of surprise flickered in Dusty's eyes. Performing publicly was a foreign concept, one that filled him with apprehension. "Ma, I don't know. I'd be a nervous wreck. And what would people think?" "Let them think what they will," Martha countered, her voice resolute. "Focus on the melody. Focus on Johnny Cash. Focus on that inner fire when you sing. That's all that matters." She clasped his hand. "Just consider it, all right? For me?" Dusty gazed at his mother, her face a map of love and unwavering faith. He understood how much this meant to her, how deeply she believed. He inhaled deeply. "Okay, Ma," he whispered. "I'll think about it." But as he watched her depart, a nascent hope flickered to life within him. Perhaps, just perhaps, his aspiration wasn't entirely unattainable. The dust motes, caught in the afternoon light, seemed to whirl with renewed vigor and brilliance. The man in black comes to town. The kitchen buzzed with the crackly warmth of the radio. A cheerful country melody accompanied Martha's pancake flipping, the sweet scent of maple syrup a comforting blanket. At the table, Dusty, already digging in, closed his eyes, savoring each mouthful with practiced appreciation. The music abruptly ceased, replaced by a voice, deep and resonant, that cut through the morning air. "Big news, folks, guaranteed to raise a few eyebrows. The one, the only, the veritable man in black, Johnny Cash, is heading our way. He'll be live and in person at the county fairgrounds on June 27th. Dusty's eyes flew open, his fork hitting the plate with a sharp clatter. Did he just say, Johnny Cash? Startled, Martha pivoted from the stove, spatula aloft. Johnny Cash? Here? In Harmony Creek? Unaware of the miniature earthquake he had triggered, the announcer rattled on. Tickets hit the shelves this Friday at Miller's General Store. Don't delay, folks, this is one show you'll regret missing. Usually a picture of composure, Dusty now vibrated with barely contained excitement. Mom, you heard that? Johnny Cash. He's actually coming. I have to be there. I have to see him. He reached for his wheelchair controls, a sudden surge of animation coursing through him. Martha hurried to his side, a soothing hand on his arm. Dusty, honey, take a breath. It's just a concert. But even to her own ears, the words sounded inadequate. It was so much more than just a concert. To her son. Just a concert? Mom, this is Johnny Cash. This is everything. He gestured emphatically, narrowly averting a milk-related disaster. I've practically worn out his records. I know every single word. His music lives inside me. His fervor ebbed slightly. But the tickets. They'll be impossible to get. He stared down at his lap, the initial joy quickly shadowed by a familiar prick of disappointment. Martha squeezed his hand reassuringly. Now, none of that negative thinking. We'll find a way. I'll be at Miller's before the sun rises on Friday. I'll camp out if I have to. You, Dusty Rivers, are going to see Johnny Cash. That's a promise. He looked up, his eyes gleaming with a potent cocktail of hope and disbelief. You really think so, Mom? I know so. And who knows? She added, a playful spark in her eyes. Maybe you'll even get to belt out a tune with him. Dusty's cheeks flushed crimson, the mere thought of singing in front of anyone, let alone Johnny Cash, turning his palms clammy. Mom! Don't even joke about that. But beneath the embarrassment, a tiny ember of possibility had taken hold. He pictured the stage, the spotlight's incandescent kiss, his voice entwined with that of the legendary Man in Black. A ridiculous, utterly improbable fantasy. Yet, for the first time, it felt almost within reach. Tickets of hope. The plastic purse strap dug into Martha's hand, a sharp contrast to the humid air. Ahead, the queue for tickets writhed like a copperhead, a mass of flannel and hopeful glances, all drawn by the legend, Johnny Cash. Here. In Harmony Creek. It still felt surreal. A twinge in her lower back reminded her of reality, as cicadas pulsed their incessant song. 2 hours. 2 hours of anticipation battling doubt. The line edged forward. A woman in front, her faded cash tee strained across her belly, held court with tales of Folsom Prison 68. Martha clung to optimism. Dusty deserved this more than anyone. His voice, a resonant baritone, usually filled only their quiet home, a treasure squandered. Later, the tantalizing aroma of sautéed onions and melting cheddar blanketed the community hall. Dusty's dream, brought to life. Benny, a saint in disguise, had secured the space, and now, sweat glistened on his brow as he expertly flipped burgers. Sarah, a mischievous glint in her eyes, hawked raffle tickets, her voice a cheerful beacon in the happy chaos. Even the perpetually grumpy Mr. Abernathy tapped his foot to the twangy music pouring from a boombox. Martha's gaze rested on Dusty. A nervous energy radiated from him as he sat by the makeshift stage, gently coaxing a melody from his guitar. A steady stream of well-wishers dropped donations into the jar, their faces radiating warmth. The outpouring was almost too much. Sunlight strained through the drawn curtains the next morning when Martha entered Dusty's room, the 2 tickets nestled securely in her hand, more precious than any gem. He sat hunched over his guitar, fingers dancing across the fretboard. Dusty? He looked up, questioning. Martha inhaled deeply. I have something for you. She extended her hand. The crimson lettering on the tickets seemed to glow even in the gloom. Dusty's breath itched. What? Johnny Cash, Martha announced, her voice thick with emotion. We're going. His eyes widened, incredulity warring with joy. He reached out, his hand trembling slightly, and carefully took a ticket. He scrutinized it, as if afraid it would dissolve. Mom! He breathed, his voice thick. How? Martha simply smiled, the furrows around her eyes smoothing out. We have good neighbors, Dusty. Wonderful neighbors. She saw a single tear escape and carve a path down his cheek. And you deserve this, honey. You deserve everything good. Front row enthusiasm. The crowd's roar slammed into Dusty like a tangible force as he was guided through the backstage portal. Though muffled by his headphones, the sheer decibel level resonated within his very skeleton. A stocky stagehand, redolent of fresh lumber, expertly steered him through a web of cords and equipment. "Here we are, friend," the man announced, positioning Dusty stage left, usually the domain of security personnel. Tonight, though, it was his. He gripped his well-loved Johnny Cash record, its vinyl grooves of familiar reassurance against the mounting pressure. The lights surrendered to indigo, and a weighty hush descended, gathering like a storm front before erupting as the man in black took the stage. The initial blast of Folsom Prison Blues was less heard than absorbed. Each note throbbed within him. Nervousness evaporated, the audience a blur of indistinct faces. He sang, not meekly, not tentatively, but with a fierce, untamed zeal that startled even him. His voice, amplified only by his fervor, joined the throng and Cash's deep rumble. Every lyric, every nuance, every guitar lick was ingrained within him. He swayed in his chair, lost in the sonic tide, his hands shaping an unseen symphony of emotion. He was no longer simply Dusty Rivers, the wheelchair-bound observer. He was integrated, electrified vibrantly. Present. The subsequent number, Ring of Fire, set the crowd ablaze. Crimson and amber spotlights pulsed in time with the song's fervent core. Dusty arched his head back and unleashed the chorus, his voice straining with the effort. A sheen of sweat dotted his brow. Irrelevant. He was, in essence, singing with Johnny Cash, sharing the music's power with a sea of faces. A beat between songs, Cash's gaze swept the multitude, then narrowed, as if zeroing in on something specific. Caught in the glare, Dusty felt a wave of unease wash over him. Was the legend looking at him? He instinctively recoiled, suddenly hyper-aware of his limitations, his exposed position. But then, Cash smiled, a slow, genuine expression that etched lines around his eyes. He pointed, the beam sharpening, isolating Dusty in its stark illumination. Paralyzed, his heart hammered like a trapped bird. What was happening? The music ebbed. "I see a lot of folks out there tonight." Cash's voice resonated, gravelly yet kind. "But there's one individual in particular who seems to know these songs better than I do." A ripple of amusement spread through the audience. Dusty wished he could disappear into the floor. He clutched the chair's arms, knuckles bone-white. Cash continued, his tone deepening. "That kind of spirit, that kind of fire. That's the very lifeblood of music. That's what keeps it breathing." He paused, his gaze unwavering. "Son, tell me your name." A glimmer of recognition. The man in black ripped into Folsom Prison Blues, the guitar a snarling beast in his capable hands. Dusty Rivers, wheelchair parked near the edge of the makeshift stage, felt the vibrations thrum through his bones. He knew every chord, every lyric. His lips moved, a silent echo to Cash's booming baritone, his hands tapping a restless rhythm on the worn leather of his wheelchair armrests. The house lights came up for a brief intermission, bathing the crowd in a warm, revealing glow. Dusty took a swig of tepid water, the plastic bottle crinkling in the sudden quiet. He felt a familiar wave of self-consciousness wash over him. All those eyes. He hunched his shoulders, wishing he could disappear. He'd sung along, lost in the music, forgetting for a while that he was different. Now, the reality crashed back. Then it happened. From the stage, Johnny Cash, wiping his brow with a black kerchief, scanned the crowd. His eyes, sharp and knowing, moved deliberately, taking in the faces before him. They paused. Held. Locked onto Dusty. Dusty froze. He swore Cash's gaze lingered a beat longer on him than on anyone else. He felt the heat rising in his cheeks. He wanted to look away, to burrow into himself, but he couldn't. Those eyes held him captive. Cash's mouth curved into a slow, deliberate smile. It wasn't a performer's smile, not the practiced flash of teeth for the cameras. It was something warmer, something genuine. He gave a single, almost imperceptible nod. A silent acknowledgement. Dusty's breath itched. He couldn't be sure. Maybe he was imagining it. Maybe Cash was just looking past him. But the intensity in those eyes, the unmistakable smile. It felt personal. His heart hammered against his ribs. He swallowed hard, his throat suddenly dry. Could it be? Did Johnny Cash see him? Did he hear him singing along? The crowd noise faded into a dull hum as Dusty's mind raced. He'd always dreamed of this, of being seen, of being heard, not just tolerated but truly recognized. He'd imagined belting out songs on a stage, the lights searing his face, the crowd roaring its approval. But that was just a dream. An impossible dream. He risked another glance at the stage. Cash was talking to a roadie, his back partially turned, but the smile still lingered in the corner of his mouth. A flicker of something new ignited within Dusty. A spark of hope. A daring, audacious thought took root. Maybe, just maybe, this wasn't just a dream after all. Maybe tonight something extraordinary was about to happen. The intermission seemed to stretch on forever, each second an agonizing eternity, filled with equal parts terror and exhilaration. He gripped the armrests of his wheelchair, knuckles white, and waited. Backstage pass. The house lights blurred into a hazy gold as Johnny launched into Ring of Fire. The familiar chords vibrated through his chest, a comfortable rumble. He scanned the crowd, his gaze lingering on the faces upturned toward the stage. He was looking for a familiar face, a particular smile. He spotted him halfway back, near the aisle. Dusty. Still beaming, still clapping, the same raw, unadulterated joy radiating from him. Johnny nodded almost imperceptibly to Big Jim, his head of security, who was standing stage left. After a couple more, get that fella backstage. Dusty. Tell him it's from me. Jim, a mountain of a man with a surprisingly gentle demeanor, gave a curt nod in return and melted back into the shadows. As the song ended, the roar of the crowd washed over him. He held up a hand, silencing them with a gesture. We're gonna do one more for ya, then we gotta take a short break. He winked. Give my throat a chance to recover from all that fire. The crowd chuckled. Backstage, Slim Johnson was pacing, his brow furrowed. Johnny, we've got a tight schedule. The sponsors are already breathing down my neck about the encore. Johnny was tuning his guitar, seemingly unfazed. Relax, Slim. 5 minutes. That's all I need. Slim stopped pacing and fixed Johnny with a stern look. Who's the fella Big Jim just brought in? Looks like he needs assistance walking. Name's Dusty, Johnny said, plucking a discordant note. He's got something special. You saw him out there. Pure Heart. Pure Heart don't sell records, Johnny. And it sure as hell doesn't keep the sponsors happy. Slim retorted, his voice tight. We got a routine. We stick to the routine. You know that. Johnny finally looked up, his eyes holding a quiet intensity. Slim, how long have we known each other? Long enough to know you're about to do something unpredictable. That's right. And sometimes, Slim, the unpredictable is the only thing worth doing. That man has a voice, a spirit. He deserves a shot, just like I did when nobody gave a damn about some kid from Arkansas. Besides, a sly grin spread across his face. A little unexpected grace never hurt nobody's soul. Not even the sponsors. He winked, then strummed a chord, the sound resonating with finality. Now, if you'll excuse me, I got a man to meet. Meeting a legend. The man in black's voice, a river of gravel and gold, softened as the last chords of Ring of Fire faded. The roar of the crowd was a living thing, vibrating in Dusty's chest even through the thick padding of his wheelchair. Then, a hand, surprisingly gentle, settled on his shoulder. Dusty Rivers? A voice, low and rumbling, asked. He looked up, blinking. It was a mountain of a man, all black denim and weathered leather, his face etched with stories only time could write. Johnny Cash. Mr. Cash. Dusty stammered, the name catching in his throat. Cash smiled, a flash of white teeth against the dark landscape of his face. Call me Johnny. And this? He gestured around the cramped backstage area, buzzing with roadies and a lingering scent of sweat and cigarette smoke. Is a right mess, ain't it? Someone, a wiry man with shrewd eyes and a perpetually worried expression, introduced as Slim Johnson, Johnny's manager, steered Dusty and Johnny towards a quieter corner. Slim eyed Dusty's wheelchair with undisguised apprehension. So, Dusty, Johnny said, squatting down so their eyes met. Heard you got a tune or two rattling around in that head of yours. Dusty swallowed, surprised. Well, I write some. Always have. Never thought anyone be interested. Everyone's got a story, son. Some just need a little help getting it out. What's yours about? Dusty found himself telling Johnny about the cotton fields of his youth, the accident that stole his legs but couldn't touch his music, the burning desire to stand, or sit, in front of a crowd and sing his heart out. Johnny listened, his gaze unwavering, a deep well of understanding in his eyes. I always figured. Dusty finished, his voice thick with emotion. That dream was just gone. Johnny stood, his towering presence filling the small space. Dreams ain't gone till you bury 'em yourself, Dusty. Tell you what. I'm thinking that maybe that crowd out there needs to hear your story. Slim choked. Johnny, hold on a minute. We haven't even sound checked, he's never been on a stage this big. We got a schedule to keep. He wrung his hands, glancing nervously at a clipboard. Insurance, liability, this could be a disaster. Johnny fixed Slim with a look that could curdle milk. Slim, hush up. This ain't about schedules or liabilities. This is about giving a man a chance. Dusty, what do you say? Dusty's heart hammered against his ribs. Fear warred with exhilaration. He looked at Johnny Cash, a legend who saw something in him, and knew he couldn't back down. I say. I'm ready, Mr. Cash. Ready as I'll ever be. Slim groaned, burying his face in his hands. This is going to be a long night. He muttered. A dream realized. The spotlight swung back to Johnny, but he didn't launch into another song. Instead, he gestured towards the side of the stage, a twinkle in his eye. Now, folks, he said, his voice resonating with warmth. I met a young man backstage tonight. A fellow with a song in his heart and a story to tell. He's got more talent in his little finger than most folks have in their whole body. His name is Dusty Rivers. A hush fell over the crowd, a wave of curiosity washing through the arena. Dusty felt his heart hammer against his ribs like a trapped bird. This was it. The moment he'd both dreamed of and dismissed as impossible. A stagehand gently guided his wheelchair forward. The lights, 1,000 blinding suns, hit him full force. He gripped the armrests, knuckles white. Johnny put a hand on his shoulder, a reassuring squeeze. Dusty here writes some powerful songs. He's got a voice that'll rattle your bones and stir your soul. He's been wanting to share his music with the world, and tonight, he's getting his chance. Johnny stepped back, offering the microphone. Give him a warm welcome, y'all. The crowd erupted in applause, a tidal wave of sound that washed over Dusty. He took a deep breath, the microphone trembling slightly in his hand. He could see blurry faces in the darkness, a sea of expectant eyes. He adjusted the mic stand, willing his hands to stop shaking. Hi. He stammered, his voice cracking. He cleared his throat. Mr. Cash. Johnny, he heard me playing backstage. And he liked it. A nervous laugh escaped him. I never thought. I mean. Johnny gave him an encouraging nod from the side of the stage. Dusty closed his eyes for a moment, picturing the dusty plains of his childhood, the crackling campfire, the melodies that filled his head. He had to do this. For himself. For the dreams he thought he'd lost. He opened his eyes, a newfound determination hardening his gaze. He strummed a chord on the guitar strapped to his lap, the sound echoing through the arena. This song, he began, his voice stronger now. This song is called Ring of Fire. He took another breath, and then he began to sing. His voice, rough around the edges but full of raw emotion, filled the arena. The first few lines were shaky, hesitant, but as he poured his heart into the song, his voice grew stronger, more confident. The crowd, initially surprised by his presence, started to sway to the rhythm, drawn in by the passion in his voice. He sang of burning love, of reckless desire, of the inescapable pull of fate. As the chorus swelled, the music took over, and for the first time in a long time, Dusty Rivers felt truly alive. The duet and the ovation. The bass drum vibrated through Dusty, a frantic pulse mirroring his own anxiety as he stood in the wings. A furtive glance through the curtain revealed the spotlight, a stark, white orb awaiting its prey. His tongue traced parched lips. Martha, a miniature figure etched with worry in the third row, held her hands clamped so tight her knuckles gleamed. He risked a wavering smile, and she returned it, a silent vow of support radiating in her gaze. Then, the announcer's voice, amplified to a booming pronouncement, heralded, "Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, Johnny Cash." A tidal wave of sound crashed over him. Dusty watched, spellbound, as Cash, a dark figure against the incandescent backdrop, sauntered into the light. The band exploded into Folsom Prison Blues, and the auditorium erupted. Dusty's grip tightened on the microphone stand, his fingers bone-white. This was the moment. After a handful of numbers, Cash raised a hand, silencing the enthusiastic approval. The room hushed, expectation hanging heavy in the air. Dusty's heart hammered a frantic tattoo against his ribs. "I met a young fella backstage tonight," Cash announced, his voice a rich, earthy baritone. "A young fella with a song burning in his soul and a story yearning to be told." He gestured stage left. "Dusty Rivers, come on out here and show 'em what you got." A ripple of curiosity spread through the crowd. Dusty drew a fortifying breath and propelled himself forward. The spotlight slammed into him, a heat wave that bleached out the world. He could scarcely make out the faces beyond the glare. Cash draped an arm around Dusty's shoulders, a gesture of camaraderie that grounded him. "Dusty's got a voice that'll rattle your bones," Cash declared. "And we're gonna share a tune with you all. One you'll probably recognize." He struck the iconic opening chords of Ring of Fire. Dusty's voice trembled initially, a fragile thing, but as Cash's deeper register intertwined with his, the fear began to dissipate. He found his footing, his strength. The music coursed through him, an exhilarating surge. He sang with unrestrained passion, imbuing each lyric with his deepest longings. Eyes closed, he surrendered to the moment. The crowd exploded as the final note faded. The sound, a tangible force, buffeted him. He blinked, taking in the sight of the entire audience on their feet, a sea of applauding figures, their faces illuminated with sheer delight. Martha was radiant, tears tracing paths down her cheeks. Cash gave Dusty a hearty clap on the back. "You've got a gift, son," he said, his grin wide and genuine. They shared a bow, Cash's arms still slung casually around Dusty's shoulders. The applause roared, a symphony of sound that would forever resonate within him. He had done it. He had stood center stage, bathed in light, and unleashed his voice. He was no longer simply Dusty Rivers from Harmony, Arkansas. He was Dusty Rivers, the singer.